Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are talking about the Morphe Lauralee brush kit. Now this brush kit, I used all of them today. I did a full tutorial, talk through. This is not a first impressions. I did film this video already and the whole thing had this weird yellow cast to it. My lighting was weird. So that was fixed. So this is actually a refilm, so not a first impressions, but I break it down by brush, all 11 of them, what I like, what I don't, what I feel is missing from the collection. All in all, whether it's worth it for a $54 value. If that's something you're into, make sure to keep on watching. And please don't forget to subscribe. I do upload twice a week, and that is the best way to stay up to date on all the fun stuff I am posting. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting off, the first brush is the Y6 from Morphe. This is a flat top kabuki brush. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my Dior Forever on top, and I'm gonna start with 2 pumps. Just because I know when you use a brush, coverage is a little bit, I guess, higher. So I'm gonna try not to remind you every 30 seconds that this is not a first impressions and that I have used all of these already a few times. But just so you know, I do love the way this applies. I have used a lot of foundation brushes and I always prefer a damp beauty sponge. It just, I find, goes on everything, goes on a lot smoother. However, this brush, just the way it buffs in, I'm not seeing any streaking, I'm not seeing any patchiness, obviously ignoring that, which I'll conceal after. But just across the board, like this is just buffing everything in really nicely. I'm getting nice even coverage and it's really helping to build up the product. So I am very happy with this. So for concealer, I'm going to use the Tarte Shape Tape just because it is my favorite. To blend that in, I'm going to be taking the M536. This was a brush that Laura actually designed with Morphe for blending out concealer. Normally, like even if I go in with a foundation brush, I will always use a sponge for concealer, but I will be using this. So I did actually have to go in and add a little bit more because this did kind of blend away a little bit of the coverage. It soaks up a lot of product. However, I did get a very smooth blend. Something I've also seen Laura do is she'll take her Y6 and after she blends it out, she'll then just kind of go under and blend that into the foundation, which again, I don't dislike that either. But as a whole, like I find that in this area especially, I had to layer up a little extra product because this did kind of suck it up a little bit. So then to set, I'm going to take my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder on the Y11. This brush, again, super soft and great for setting the under eye. So the one thing that I did say this already when I saw this bundle, was I was not happy that there was not a large powder brush. That is something like I have an entire drawer just dedicated to these big fluffy brushes. Currently, my favorite is the E2 from Morphe. It's just great for stamping powder on the face. And this is the only real setting brush. So I know when she did her review of these, she was like, you know, you can just pat this everywhere. You can kind of set everything down with this little brush. That's cute, but I've got a big head. So for me to like go around with this tiny little brush and just start stippling, like Laura is known for, like all of her friends, the social media influencers, always make fun of her for having a tiny face. So she might be able to get away with setting with a brush this small, but honestly, I'm not about it. So I'm just gonna grab my E2 and just finish this up quickly. I'm gonna take a little extra powder and just set this under the eye just to bake it a little bit. And now that it's been a few minutes on that same brush, I'm just going to dust all of this powder away. So as far as setting the under eye, like I love this shape of brushes. I have a whole bunch of them and I do love this shape. This is very soft and it does work very well. But for it being the only like powder brush, I wish there was a bigger brush option. To contour today, I'm going to jump into my contour palette from BH Cosmetics, and I'm going to take the lightest shade up here. This is the R14, which again, she has such a tiny little face that I guess this is big enough to contour. I usually go in with a brush about double this size, but we're gonna make it work today. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of that contour powder and we're just going to get it under the cheekbone. So what I will say about this, first off, I think it is great for just hitting up the side of the nose. I think this is surprisingly for a larger brush, it's good for a nose contour. I find that as far as a pulling motion, it's not great, but if you do small circles, this is really gonna help to buff that contour just into the face, and it does give you a very good look. Now this isn't the powders I normally use. I usually use the Kat Von D, but I've been trying to use other things. I'm trying to branch out, and so I'm not loving the color, but that is not the brush fault. The application of it went really well. So while I'm contouring, I'm gonna go into the brightening shade right here, and going back onto that Y11, I'm just going to pat some of that brightening powder under the eye. There are two more face brushes, and I have not done bronzer, blush, or highlight. Obviously, this is going to be for highlight, but this is the brush that is here for, I guess, blush and bronzer. So I'm gonna try it for both, I guess. So I'm gonna use the Marc Jacobs Tantastic Bronzer because this is a little warmer than I'd like, so I'm going in with a fairly cool-toned blush. This isn't blush, this is bronzer. I'm gonna go in with a fairly cool-toned bronzer, so I'm just gonna take a little bit on the tip of this. This is the E4, and I'm just going to use that to warm up the perimeters of the face. That actually was really nice for the bronzer application. Like, everything sweeped on nicely. I don't love a super dense brush for bronzer anyway, so having a nice fluffier brush did bring everything on very nicely. So for blush today, I'm going for more of like a sun-kissed look, so I'm gonna go into the Milani Baked Blush in Luminoso. It is a little sheer, so this kind of fluffy brush is actually great for it because you could just add a little bit of that sheer blush, give you a little bit of color, but it's not gonna get overwhelming on the blush. Now, I don't love a lot of blush as it is. When I go in with a blush that's a little more on the shimmery side, like this one, I wanna go in even softer just so that I don't build up too much shine and then my highlight really pops, because then I find I have to go like extra on the highlight. So I'm gonna just set this down quickly because I like to give myself a smooth base for highlight to stick to. Since all these brushes are Morphe, I figured I'll use the Morphe Prep and Set Continuing Setting Mist. So let's jump into highlighter. So the video is not sponsored. Obviously, I'm far too small for people to actually give me sponsorships, but I will be going into the Morphe Babe in Paradise Bretman Rock palette because I've been loving it lately, especially these two shades right here. Get Laid and Vacation. They're just more of the like champagne-y bronzy. So I'm gonna take that on the R36, which is very similar to the M510 that I use all the time. So I already know I love a brush in this shape. I'm going to actually start with the darker shade just because I feel like the bronzer's a little dark today. So I'm going to start down here with Get Laid. I'm going to take a little bit on the brush. And you see how stunning these powders are? So I'm going to take a little bit just over the tail of the brow as well. And taking a little Vacation, the lighter shade, I'm just going to take that just on the high point of the cheek just to amp it up a little bit more. Okay, so I just zoomed you in and something funky is going on with my lighting. I will have to figure that out. But there are 5 more brushes for the eyes, so I'm just going to jump in with that. My eyes are already primed and set down with a translucent powder. And in the spirit of me using things that I haven't been using in a while, I'm gonna be jumping into my Androgyny palette from Jeffree Star, which was a longtime favorite of mine. So I'm gonna start. This is the M573. It is a pointy tipped blender brush, so I think this fits right perfect into the socket and it's great for that transition shade. So I'm gonna start right here with Safe Word, and I'm just going to start buffing that into the crease. Then on the tip, and I mean like the very tip of the brush, I'm going to go into Dominatrix the brown, and I'm genuinely just taking it on the very tip of the bristles. And I'm going to lock that right into the socket and just build up that outer portion of the eye. And then once I feel like there's no more product on the brush, I'll then slowly blend out and into the inner corner. The next brush is the R39. Now this is a flat shader brush, just like the MAC 217, the Morphe M433. I feel like I have 20 brushes in this exact shape, so it's really no different than any of those. It is great for just like going right into the crease. It's great for pressing and stippling shadow onto the outer V. And if you take it sideways, it's actually really good for diffusing color up and all around that crease area. So I'm gonna take that first with Dominatrix, and I'm just gonna use this to gently build up the outer V of the eye. And I'm just gonna kind of stamp that here. And then once I have the product down, I'm just gonna wiggle that back and forth just to give myself a smooth blend into the crease. And since we already took that color into the crease, it's actually going to be really simple to just blend it to that line and then blend it together. Then going back to that first brush, I'm just going to blend out that crease and get rid of any harsh lines we may have made. Then on the tip of this brush, I'm gonna go into Military, the green, and I'm just going to very gently work that into the inner crease. So just very low down over that brown. Then I'm actually gonna take on the side of the brush that same green shade, and I'm just going to bring that in the center of the lid where the brown meets, well, where there's no shadow yet. Then going back into that initial brush, we're just going to blend out that crease. Then going into Deja Vu, the bronze shade, I'm gonna take that. This is the M421, which is a flat packer brush. This is great for just pressing shadow onto the lid. Now I am going to wet the shade, so I'm gonna wet the brush, and I'm going to tap into Deja Vu, which is this bronze shade right here. And I'm just going to press that on the inner third of the lid. Then going back into that green shade on the brush, I'm just going to blend that shimmer shade into the crease and over the lid. And that's just gonna give you a little bit of this soft, very like autumn ombre, which I am feeling. Everyone's gonna disagree. Or let me know in the comment section if you agree, like summer's revving up, everything's starting to get warm, and I'm over here like, okay, but is it October yet? And now that we have this tone everywhere we want it on my finger, I'm gonna take a little bit of frosting, which is definitely a blinding gold shade. And I'm actually gonna press that all over the lid, because what that's gonna do is it's going to, you'll see here, it's gonna tone that green and it's gonna tone the bronze. So the whole thing is gonna look a little bit more seamless, but that green is just gonna give you this metallic green shimmer. The bronze is gonna look a little bit more gold. So then for the lower lash line, I'm gonna take, this is the E36. I have used this in about 1 million videos. I have this brush, I love this brush. So I'm gonna start with Safe Word, and I'm basically just gonna mirror everything I did on top, on the bottom, starting with that transition shade. Now this is not the first pencil brush I go in with. I have a bigger size that I prefer, which is the E18. This one I use for more detail work, but it will work as a pencil brush. Just for me, I find it to be a little bit on the small side. I like to go in with something a little bit bigger. Then just to amp this up a little bit more, I'm gonna take Swallow, the cobalt blue, and I'm going to run that right on the lower lash line. And then on the tip of that M433 with no additional product, I'm just gonna kind of blend that out a little bit, make it a little bit less harsh. So I'm just gonna throw on some lashes and liner, and I'll be right back to use the last brush. So the last brush is an M250-1. It is a liner brush. You can use this to place things on your lower lash line. You can really do a lot with it. However, my liquid liner is all dried up. So I'm actually gonna be using it to precise highlight. So I'm gonna be using the Frozen Ideal Duo from Dose of Colors. I did mention this in my last favorites, and it is just such a beautiful formula. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that on the tip of this brush and on a mirror. I'm going to place that very carefully just on the inner corner. Then on the pencil brush again, I'm going to go into the white shade of the OFRA NikkieTutorials Everglow, which I believe is Glazed Donut. And I'm just going to press that just to enhance that look a little bit more. And that is it. Now, I know these are not necessarily colors you would use, but I really wanted to like show you with colors that may not necessarily go together, but just to like where the precision is, because otherwise you're just going to get a lot of like brush application and not so much as far as like what can these brushes do as far as blending. So I'm just going to run through them and give you some quick thoughts. First, with the foundation brush, I actually think it really went on really well. Everything is very smooth and airbrushed and looks great. I don't love foundation brushes. I still prefer a beauty blender, but this is a great one if you're going to use one. The M536, what I used to blend out the concealer. Honestly, again, I'm going to stick to a beauty blender. I do think that this is a really good brush though, and it is a nice dense tip. So I want to see how this would go as far as blending out cream contour, because the bristles are dense and soft, but firm enough that I think it'll be really good for getting into the hollows. Setting down that concealer, this brush, 100% in love with. I'm probably going to use this all the time. You're going to see this in a whole bunch of videos. You'll notice I just use this to kind of flick away any of that fallout, which I think the brushes are just soft enough that it's not going to blend them in, so I'm not getting this white or blue cast on the under eye from everything on the eyes. Contour, this is actually pretty good for just chiseling out this area, but like I said, it's a little small for what I like to use it for, so maybe not necessarily. It was very good though for like bronzing up the hairline, like getting into this small area, but as far as for me, I'm going to prefer something bigger for contour. This brush, the E4 for blush, I think it went on really well. The bronzer as well. Like everything, it's just so soft. It's beautiful. I'm going to have to try this again for blush with other formulas because I'm really happy with this. Highlight, you know I love this. Like I'm actually going to use it to amp this up a little bit because the inner corner is blinding and I want to kind of bring the face up to that level. So I'm going to add a little bit of the middle shade from this little trio just to kind of amp everything up. Beautiful. I love this brush. I will be using it when my other ones are dirty in replacement. Like, honestly, I'll kind of, they're all really the same. I have like 4. I'm going to cycle through them, but they are great. Now for the eye brushes. The pencil brush, you know I use it. You know I have it. You know I love it. That is a win for me. Again, I almost said the M433. The R39, which is basically the M433, you've also seen me use a lot. So I do really love this brush. You will see more of it. The blending brush is pointier than many of the other ones I have. Normally, it's, you know, to get right into that socket and blend those colors out, it's a little bit more work. So for this one, I actually think it works really well. It is soft, it does not aggravate, it works well, I will use it. The shader brush, the flat one for packing that like dense color on. This is, I think I'm gonna try it to use it to pat out a cut crease because I prefer a little bit of a wider brush for my lid. I have a lot of lid space and this kind of took a lot of time to build up. So I would want something a little bit bigger than this. And when I get a new gel liner, I will try this brush with liner. I haven't yet, but for detail work, for crease work, honestly, for really like depositing glitter on the lower lash line, this is a beautifully made brush. I do not know, and I will let you know in the comment section how I felt about it as far as for liner, but so far I do like it. Like I said, for the value, this is actually a really good kit. Comes with the bag, comes with 11 brushes, really everything you need to do a full face except a large powder brush. Like I used this one today. I have a lot, so I didn't necessarily need it. If you are looking for like a one and done kit that has everything in it, this is good, but you are gonna wanna pick up another powder brush. This is the E2. My other favorites are the E41, which is a little bit bigger for like pressing powder in, as opposed to this, which I think buffs nicely. You can go in with the Sephora number 30, which is another one that's very good for either pressing or buffing. And then this is the Sonia Kashuk number 1. This I'll use for when I want to kind of like dust a softer layer of powder on, so it does a little bit more as far as that. This one I also really prefer for powder foundations. But across the board, that's the only thing missing from this kit. It is definitely worth it. I did enjoy it. A lot of the brushes in here I will use again. The ones I won't, I will probably gift to my sister because I have so many, like I have cups of brushes everywhere. So there's one behind me. So for me, I really don't need another brush if I'm not gonna use it. So I will probably keep, I'm gonna say like 7 out of the 11. The other one, Brooke, good luck. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful and I will see you next time. Bye.